Hey class, it's Professor Rodsack again. How you doing? I'm back. Right now, I'd like to review the sample student essay with you. We're going to look at it together, and I'm going to point out the features of the essay format to you and talk about a little bit of what the student does with the paper and also some of the basic formatting that you do with college writing. And when I say basic formatting, I'm talking about like double spacing and things like that. So let's begin. All right. So, isn't this terrific? You have a sample student essay here. So, some of you might be thinking, hey, I've never written a college essay before. I don't even know what one looks like. Here you go. You can look at one. You can see how it's done. You can see how students organize their essays, the formatting they use, the different essay components, etc. So, let's start at the top. You see the student name goes up here. This is what we call a heading. And every paper needs to have a heading. Every essay that you're turning in, it needs to be over here on the left side of the paper. So on the left-hand margin, you'll start off with your name. When it says student name, you will write your name there. The class, that will be our class. So English 023, section 255. And then the professor name, that would be my name, Professor Jennifer Wadsack or Professor Wadsack, whichever you prefer. And then the date. For the date, we'll put the date that you finish the paper, you finish writing it. So that is the heading. And then over here we have, are we free to create ourselves? That's the paper title. And as you can see, it goes below the heading and before the paper starts. And it is centered in the middle of the paper. And there's also specific capitalization going on here. If you don't know how to capitalize an MLA format, you can look that up on the Purdue OWL or the Purdue Online Writing Lab. That's what that stands for. And I have linked that in the ICE method handout. So if you would like to see that address, go onto the ICE method handout, which is in the Writing Solutions folder this week. And you will see the Purdue OWL website address. And once you get onto that website, you can just type in capitalization, MLA, that stands for Modern Language Association. And English uses the writing conventions that are established by the Modern Language Association. So when I say MLA format, that's what that means. It means the conventions that are set out by the Modern Language Association or the MLA format. All right, great. So you see there's a capital A, capital W, capital F, because we've got are we free. Now we all of a sudden we have a lowercase t for two. Why is that? Well, I'll tell you why. All preposition words, or what prepositions are there? Words like to, for, from, up, around, about, above, below, beyond. Those words are not capitalized in MLA titles. Also, conjunctions are not capitalized in MLA titles. So conjunctions are and, or, so, for, but, nor, and yet. Those 7 words are conjunctions and they are not capitalized in our titles. The other category that is not capitalized in our titles is articles. And there are 3 of the articles, the, a, and an. So when I say the, it could be the or the, a, and an. Those 3 words are not capitalized also. All right, great. Now, we start the essay and you see I've highlighted sentence here because it's what we call the hook. And the hook is something that will reel in the audience. It will be an attention grabber of some sort. And what this one says is we live in a country that openly expresses its freedom. So we can all relate to that, right? We live in the United States, all of us here, and we value our freedom, right? And so it's kind of like a rallying cry that the essay starting with. Now, this is a student essay, so it is not by any means a perfect essay, but I wanted to show you a student essay so that you can observe writing and an essay in terms of what a student does. So don't be looking towards this for perfection, and I will talk about some of that as we go. And my comments actually are over here on the side. So if you want to review my comments, just open up the sample student essay, which I have in posted up in the week 4 readings folder as well, and you can open it up and you can actually go by and read these comments that I made that refer to these different parts of the student's essay. Also note on the title, are we free to create ourselves? If you notice, the title says something about the topic. So typically when you're writing a title, you want something that's going to interest the reader a little bit and also indicate what the essay will be about. But don't stress about your title. You know, it's not like I'm going to grade you on how excellent the title is. Just make sure you have a title and it's centered and it's capitalized correctly. All right, great. So next we have some context. Remember, after the hook, after you reel in your audience, you want to provide some context for your argument. So this student says, we are free to be whoever we want in terms of sex, gender, or sexual orientation. There are not any laws in place that will prevent us from choosing how we would like to be identified. So you see, there is a context for this essay. We're saying, hey, we have all these laws, they're set up so there's not discrimination. And then there comes the big however, right? Because what would be the point of writing an essay unless the writer had something to say that was, interesting and different from the norm? And the argument that this student is making is, just because we're legally allowed to be free, is it really freedom if the social repercussions are possibly worse than what our own government can do to us? So that is the thesis statement for this essay. Now, it's a little bit of a different thesis statement because it's a question, right? It's what we call a rhetorical question because of the way it's phrased. People will probably say, hey, yeah, I don't know about that. Maybe that sounds as if we wouldn't be free, right? Well, the student's going to then go on to write and explain why we're not free, given the fact that we have social repercussions. All right, so in our essay, it's not quite on this topic, right? Ours is a little bit different. Ours is, are we lucky in our society? Or no, not are we lucky, but who is lucky in our society? And how can we make more people more lucky? Or what could we do to make more people more lucky? So your thesis statement will be an answer to those 2 questions, or that 2-parter question. And you would write those answers right here after doing a setup, but some sort of context. You might want to talk about, I don't know, some of the articles you've been reading or some of the issues that have come up in our discussions. And you can even pose those questions, the essay questions, at this point. And then right after that, provide the thesis statement, which will be your answer to the questions. A lot of times in thesis statements, too, we give, we might list our controlling ideas that the rest of the body paragraphs will have. That is a really clear format. It's very organized. You don't have to be as specific as that, but you want to give some indication maybe of what the controlling ideas will be. For example, this says social repercussions, right? So we know that the body paragraphs are going to talk about those social repercussions. It doesn't say exactly which social repercussions, but we know that those are going to be the reasons that this student is arguing that we're not quite free in our society, even though we have laws that would protect us, right? There are other things that make us not quite act with freedom. Like we constrain our actions because of certain things. So that's what we're going to expect all these body paragraphs to be. Their controlling ideas will be some sort or another of a social repercussion that inhibits our freedom. Okay, let's see. We're going to drop down from this. That's if you notice the thesis statement. For our essay, we want that to be the last sentence of the introductory paragraph, as it is here in this student paper. Now, a little note about this essay format we're going over. This is not the only way to write essays. And I don't want you to take away from this that you have to be locked into this format and you have to do it all the time. But what it is it's a clear, basic format, and it's a really good one to start off with when we are writing for the first time in college so that we can master a simple, basic, easy to understand format, right? And it's easy to implement too. We have the graphic organizer to help us. We have all different readings that explain it. And I think it's pretty easy to latch on to the format too, because you just think, I introduce my topic, and with the thesis, then I got body paragraph, body paragraph, body paragraph, which are all my reasons that prove the thesis, and then finally a concluding paragraph. All right, so as I mentioned in our virtual class, or have mentioned previously maybe, um, the essay format is not something that you need to get locked into in the future, but for our class, we want to implement it now. And it's I kind of compared to like Picasso. Picasso, the famous Cubist painter. He is known for paintings where everybody's distorted, they're broken up into like geometric shapes, and they don't even quite look like a human, right? It looks as if you kind of put a human through a weird computer like Minecraft program and turn them into blocks and then rearrange them. Now, Picasso actually learned to paint realistically perfectly before he ever did the Cubist painting. It's kind of like you master the basics, you perfect them, and then after you've mastered them and fully understand them, you can play with those basics. You can rearrange them. You can adapt the basics to whatever format will suit your argument or whatever you're trying to do in your essay. But for now, in this class, we want to stay in the basic format. All right, so that's very clear, very easy to implement, and easy to persuade your reader. All right, so that is a note on why we're using this format and how you can use it in your writing. Okay, let's drop down. We got first body paragraph. Here we go. And look, it starts with a topic sentence. When we are born, people instantly have expectations for how we should be clothed and how we should act. So we're talking about expectations, societal expectations. So that seems to be the topic of this body paragraph, or in other words, the controlling idea. So the rest of the paragraph, we should expect to be talking about those social expectations. All right. Now, a clearer topic sentence might have said exactly that, like social expectations, and maybe framed it in terms of the argument, but we get the gist of it from this one. We dropped down, we got some discussion. As we talked, we have to have in every paragraph, we need some discussion. And then we have a quote, because in every paragraph, you need to use a quotation. Now, that is not, again, a requirement for every essay that you write for the rest of your life. No. But for this class and this essay, we're going to go with a very basic format, again, so that you can master it, so it is laid out, so it is easy and simple for you to grasp. So we want in every body paragraph to start with a topic sentence that introduces the controlling idea. And then we're going to have discussion and a quotation. The quotation will be what we call your substantiating details or your supporting details that will support the controlling idea that your essay is making. In other words, it's kind of like an example. It illustrates the point you're trying to make. And your discussion of that quotation will tell how and why it illustrates your point. In other words, the meaning of it and how that meaning is being extrapolated to support what you're saying. Okay, now that discussion we see continues throughout the body paragraph, and there's even some more quotations here, but they are breaking down the first quotation. Now, if you look, they use the MLA format, which I told you to use, which is you say the article's title, the complexity of identity, who am I, and the author's name, Beverly Daniel Tatum. And then you have the verb, because you have to have some sort of sentence introducing your quotation. Can't just have the quotation out there by itself. It's got to be saying like this author, or according to this author in this article, or this article says blah, 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 blah. Okay, and then you have your quotation. Now, the quotation is the exact words, not your recollection of what the author said, not a paraphrase, not your best attempt. It's the exact words. For a quotation, you need the exact words, and you place them within quotation marks. And those quotation marks indicate to the reader that these are not your words, they're somebody else's words. That's extremely important because you do not want to take credit for somebody else's words. If you do that, that's called plagiarism. Very important to follow this MLA format then. Now, if you were to use another quote by Tatum, later on in the paragraph, you wouldn't have to repeat the whole first name again. You could say, according to Tatum, and just use the last name. So when you introduce the writer for the very first time in an article, you use the full name. Every reference after that, you just use the last name because the reader understands who you're talking about at that point. Okay, let's scroll down. We got another body paragraph with a topic sentence. We got discussion. We've got a quotation in here. And again, another topic sentence. and another quotation and discussion. And then we drop down and we have our concluding paragraph. Here's where the author or the student recaps the argument and